Okay, so thank you for coming tonight. I don't have much to say other than welcome Attilio Pugliese and thank you for coming. Give him a round of applause.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. And as you said, my name is Attilio Pugliese. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, born and raised. Kind of an interesting road to get to where I am. Started, handing out flyers at a young age, like 14 years old, working what we called all ages clubs back there. So, running amok through different high schools, handing out flyers, chased out loads by principals and whatnot. And then from there, I worked my way into like the over 19 for us nightlife. Worked through promoting some of the cooler underground venues in the city. From there, I sort of wanted to branch out into talent buying. Ironically enough, I thought I was going to end up being an agent. And so I was kind of going down that path and was doing talent buying, then started putting on my own events. And from there, I sort of kind of reached a plateau. Being from Canada, trying to get deeper into this business, I wanted to get over to Europe and the UK. So I found myself over in Ibiza. And that was about 7 years ago now. And from there, it sort of steamrolled. Nathan Barato, who's my longest standing client, he actually approached me after hanging with him for that summer, which is kind of surreal because I grew up going to his parties in the city. And he was like, he's like, I like your hustle, I like what you're up to, so do you want to help me out and get into management? And I was like, yeah, you know what? It was an interesting thing because as a talent buyer, one of the things I found from agents a lot was, management says no, management says they need more money, management says they can't do this, management says they can't do that. So it was kind of a sort of eye-opener, and I was like, I wanted to be on more of that creative side, and it's like the agents really don't, they have power, but to a certain extent, and the managers are the ones that are able to sort of grow the artists. So I took that opportunity, ran with it. So Nathan and I were working together for a few years, and then steamrolled into getting a few other acts, and then steamrolled into starting Forward Motion, and then from there, what Nathan, Detlef, Lapman, Carlo Leo, and I took on Lee Foss and the whole Repopulate Mars brand over a year ago, which has been an incredible experience. And just sort of been honing my craft, working, grafting, and that's kind of how it all got started.
Did you say you're an artist buyer or talent
I was doing
buyer?
talent buying, back.
What do you mean by that?
So talent buying, I was working for various venues, programming their nights. So they would say, right, here's 52 weeks, here's a budget, go out and program the club every week. I would liaise with the promoters of the club, and I'd be like, look, what do you guys want to promote? Who do you want to have? Who can we go after? So it was essentially, going after talent and booking them for the venues, as well as booking artists for some of the events we were putting on in the city as well.
So what would you say could be a step for an artist to take in order to be represented?
I guess it's kind of funny. I find myself answering that question a lot in the last few weeks. You know what? It's an interesting thing because every artist is different. Every artist sort of has a different path. Some and not in terms of talent, but just in terms of their career. Some bloom a little later. Some, right out the gate, there's managers or agents sort of interested in them. I would say, and again, I said this in an interview a few weeks ago, and other managers would kill me. Probably some of the people I work with would be like, shut up. It's not something you should kind of rush into. I would say it's better to be wanted, have somebody approach you. And I know it's kind of hard to sit back and let that happen, but I feel like if you give it up that easy from the beginning, then you kind of lose control of what you want to do and sort of like the direction you want to go in. Because as managers, we come in and we're like, right, do this, you need to go down this road, you need to change this, that doesn't work, you need to do like this. And it kind of might ruin sort of the creative process you're on. So I would say, just stick to what you're doing. You know what? Number one, turn out tunes. Music. Just make as much as you can. Try and just sort of tighten your productions. And I know it's hard too because you want to get as much music out as you can, but sort of be patient. Try and put out only the best stuff you're making or what you think is the best of what you're making. Yeah.
So in the first steps of an artist management company, how do you promote yourselves and your artists?
It's interesting. Again, every artist is different, so you kind of, look, there's a formula, not that we use, but every manager sort of kind of sticks to, and you sort of need to apply that differently to every artist. But I would say the music initially has to speak for itself. We can work our connections, sort of try and muscle an artist ahead at a young level, but if the music isn't there, if they're not consistent with what they're doing, it does get to a certain point where it is difficult to promote that artist. And again, you could bring in PR. We have a social media team. We have marketing. We push really hard to the DSPs, which is like Spotify, iTunes, especially nowadays. But everybody still has the whole Beatport mentality where, yeah, it's important. But if you can, look, don't get me wrong, Beatport #1, getting in the top 10 is really important. But if you can kind of bridge that gap and get out through like the Spotify and the iTunes and kind of hit that world and get the streams out there, it does make it a lot easier to promote yourself, promote an act, because you sort of get out to a wider base of people, and it essentially makes our job a lot easier. And you know what? Stay true to yourself as an artist. I would say I like to see in an act, be humble, hardworking, and it's really encouraging as a manager to be able to work with somebody like that. And we want to push as much as we can when you're that kind of person.
When signing a new artist, would you like them to have maybe a background of music that they've already released, or would you like them to have like a fresh slate where you could release their music first?
I could go either way, really. Look, if it's a new act, especially, like we try and like to help them with the narrative, So if they have a catalog of music and they're like, right, we have these 10 tracks that we think we're confident in shopping, we're like, right, okay, what labels do you want to release on? And then from there, we look at it together. We sort of set up realistic targets, and sort of help them navigate through it. But if you have had releases, there's also something to be said about that, because then you have history, right? And we can work with history too, as long as the labels are sort of in a credible place. Like, don't just give your music up to anybody. Hold on to it for dear life. It's something I find with a lot of up and coming DJs where they're just so excited to get that music out, and as you should be, but don't just give it up to anybody. Don't let somebody, because you're discouraged, because you got discouraged maybe that one or two labels turned it away. Don't just go give it up. Still keep the quality level up. Try and put a list together of 10 of the best, of what you think are the best labels that could help you, and go after them. And you know what? Keep your sights on them. Don't give it up. Music is like currency, That's how you guys, DJs in general, that's especially up and coming DJs, that's how you guys get noticed. That's how you guys get credibility. That's how you guys get exposure. So, and a lot of labels, I hate to say it, don't give you the best promo. Don't give you the best support. Your release just gets lost, and you could have had something special, and because you gave it to and it's no disrespect to some labels out there, but it's just how it is, There's A labels, B labels, C labels, D labels, and if you just give it up easily, it kind of sucks for you.
A lot of new DJs are concerned about how to promote themselves within socials. What is your stand?
It's become a different animal now with social media. For example, with bookings, it's like some promoters are only interested in like what your social media is doing, as opposed to like what kind of music you're making and how you DJ. I would say you have to play both sides. It's just it's the hard truth right now, where you have to be out there on social media. I would say don't sell your soul. Don't be cheesy. Don't follow the trend. Just kind of stick to what you do. Be consistent. Stay in everybody's face. Work every kind of music platform you have, or every social media platform. So yeah, work the Beatports, work the Facebooks, work the Instagram, work the Spotify. You have to work every platform on every level. And you know what? Don't get discouraged if your friend or somebody, one of your mates that's been doing it for a while, gets more views or more likes. It is what it is. And not everybody's the same character. Not everybody has it in them to kind of jump onto a speaker and act a bit of a fool. And again, music is number one. The music, the productions, people do notice that. And yeah, it might be discouraging again, to see somebody getting booked because of their social media reach, but that'll speak volumes in the long run. And that's what it is, you know what? It's longevity. You have to look at it like, you know, you don't want to sort of blow up just, or sort of reach your peak from an early start. You want to just kind of stay consistent and grow and grow and grow, and it'll pay off in the long run. Because I mean, I would assume that a lot of you want to do this, you know, essentially for a career, or get it to a point where you can DJ for a living, and the only way to do that is to stay consistent. And yeah, you can really, you know, blow up right away, but it's likely it could plateau, and from there it's really hard to sort of get up there again. So that's what I would say in that.
Do you look at like SoundCloud followers, Instagram followers? Do you take into that into consideration, or is it just primarily the music that you take interest in?
We could look at that from time to time, but it's the music that's the interest. Because look, if it's good music, us as managers, we can help you with building that up. You know, we got marketing teams, we got social media teams. We can work all the angles. We can plug in our formula to help get that up. So I'd say it's the music before anything else. Because again, if you don't have the music, the social media can only last for so long. You need the music. Where's it gonna get to eventually if you don't have the music? You know, your following will die off. If there's nothing new or fresh for people to hear or listen to, there's really no real gain there. And again, we look for growth. We like to say, can I see myself with this artist in 10 years? Can I see myself with this artist in 5 years? I don't really want to work with somebody that maybe this is like a year or two project and then it might lose its sort of life. Yeah. We want to work with somebody that we see ourselves with for 10 years at least, you know, because again, we want growth. We want to be able to develop. Nothing happens overnight. You know, there's that 1% that off a track or two, they blew up. You know, the rest have to work for it, and you have to put out music. And that kind of goes to, I guess I'll answer sort of a question for you guys, is like how much music to put out. So don't put out too much music. You know, you want to stay within a decent amount. I would say, you know, in the beginning, you know, try and put out, if you can, if you have the means to, if you can get them signed, you could do like 5, 6 EPs, 7 EPs a year, because there's so much information and so much music coming out every week. You guys know how much music's coming out every week. It's crazy. It's nonstop. Now, how much of it is good or not is a different story, but too much is overkill. But you also want to keep yourself competitive within the world of how much is coming out. And then eventually, as your career grows and as your productions get better, then make them more special, you know, pull them back. Bring it back to maybe like 3, 4 EPs a year, do a couple remixes if you can. And that's sort of where I think you can get away with that, is maybe do some more remixes as opposed to putting out your original stuff.
So if, let's say someone wants to approach you and they would want you to listen to their music, what would make you click and say, oh, he's a very good artist?
You know what? Fire it over. I try to keep an open mind and listen, and just listen to everybody's music, because you know what? I don't know if I'm going to discover the next Lee Foss or Detlef. It's like you got to give everybody a fair chance. And being able to have the advantage of having labels that are in-house and accessible to us, I'm always like open to listening to new music. And yeah, right now in this moment, I'd say, depending on what your genre was, whether it was tech house, whether it was techno, whether it was house, if it had something in it that differentiated you in a certain way, it doesn't have to be in a big way. We constantly in our management company, you know, there's names getting thrown around the office all the time of younger up and coming acts, and we're like, yeah, that's cool, or it's kind of the same as what we've been hearing. So it's definitely looking for something special, you know. I mean, don't go put a trumpet in in your production to separate yourself, or do. But it just has to. It's hard to say, because at any given point, something could catch you. You know, you could be in a certain mood one day and you hear some demos, or you hear something that comes across your desk and you're like, wow, that just hit me differently today than it might have a week or two ago, or 6 months ago. So I guess it just depends on the time, what we think sort of is the next trend. You know, we like to think, not that we are creating trends, but that we have sort of an advantage in sort of seeing what potentially could work by having some of these larger acts with our management company. They're always like, you know, they give us insight too, and they're like, hey, we think this sound or this guy might be going in the right way, so keep an eye out.
So you said that if we're trying to get a song through a label but it doesn't work, we shouldn't give it up, right? But what do you mean by give it up?
You know, there's a lot of good labels, right? So say you sent it to 10 of the best, what you think are the best labels. Say you didn't hear anything back, then now go to the next tier and find the next 10 best. That doesn't work, go to the next tier. And you know what? If you keep in mind, you know, you got to understand too that a lot of these guys that run labels, if they don't get back to you, sometimes they just don't want the music, and some guys are just dicks and they don't get back to you, you know, which is a shitty way to be, because you're sitting there trying to wonder, you know, did they see it? Did they not see it? Hold on to it. Maybe just hold on to it. You know, rework it. Maybe take it as a hint that maybe, you know what, maybe it wasn't the best I thought it was. So take it back into the studio or take it back out to a club, play it out again, and give yourself an honest assessment and be like, you know what? Maybe I could tweak this. Maybe I could change this, or just throw it in the back, work on something fresh.
What do you look for in an email that has been sent to you as a demo other than the track? Like what information do you look for in the email?
For nothing really, keep it short and simple.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, hey, I'm so-and-so, this is my new track. You know, one thing I find, and we'll still give it a chance, but it just makes it, you know, makes it so much, a little bit more of a unnecessary process is like, I've gotten emails with like 4 paragraphs. I just keep it short and say, you know, I'm so-and-so, here's my demo, would love for you to check it out and release it on your label. Easy. That label head, if they really want to look, they'll like check your Instagram, they'll get their assistant or whoever's on their team, hey, check this artist out for me, or they'll check it out themselves. Just keep it simple. You know what, the less words the better. The less words, and you gotta remember, a lot of these labels, you know, especially the big ones, they're getting so many demos, so much shit sent to their inboxes that when they get another email that's like this long, they don't even want to read it, right? And they just for that reason, they could be at a point in the day where they're like, I can't do this anymore, and they don't want to even look at it, and your demo just gets pushed to the side. Keep it short, sweet, get it over.
Do you think it's worth like following up with the email, or just send it to them and just wait and then?
No, you follow up, you know, like you don't want to follow up 2 days later or whatever, you know, because it's kind of annoying when somebody's like really down your throat a lot. Like sometimes they just don't have the time to listen right away, right? So they end up getting back to you in 2 or 3 weeks because that's when they sat down and listened to them, you know. I know a few labels that have listening sessions like once every 6 weeks, so you might not get an answer for 2 months. I would say follow up, give it a couple follow-ups, and if they don't at least give you an answer like, hey, I plan to listen to this, you know, this date, or okay, I'll check it out now, then move on after a certain period of time. And you know what? There's nothing better than being able to say no. So if they come back and they're like, oh, that tune you sent me, it's like, sorry, I signed it to so-and-so, and they'll be like, fuck. And trust me, they'll keep an eye out. They'll keep an eye out for your music the next time you send it.
Let's pick an artist from your roster. If we take as an example such an artist, would you be able to share his success story?
All right, I would say I'd say Latman, because I started out with Joe pretty much within the first year of his career, and it was really interesting to watch him, because he sort of, through some of his productions and some of the music he put out, he kind of cemented a sort of a sound that he was really known for. With him, you know, he had the music, he had some really good success early on, and then from there, we crossed the pond and signed him to Paradigm in America, and we just really worked it. And again, he's one that's really good with his socials, you know, really stays on top of it, but doesn't do the average sort of posting videos in the DJ booth. You know, he's on there, videos about his productions, videos about sort of the process himself, and we really marketed the act from an angle where how can we introduce this kid from Nottingham to the rest of the world and sort of break him out of just the UK. And don't get me wrong, the UK is vital to the house and techno world. It's a big staple in sort of what the rest of the world does. By us really working his platform here allowed us to get him over to South America, get him over to North America, Australia. You know, he really vibes with promoters, and again, that is something that is special, because if you can make that connection with a promoter, and you know, you're not an asshole, You're not a diva. You're really easy to deal with. They'll want to book you again, and especially if you smash the gig. It's just, and then you're putting out consistent music, releasing. You know, we strategized too with him. We released on the right labels. We just kind of didn't give music up to anybody. Believe it or not, Jamie turned down like 20 to 25 tracks of his before he had taken the one, which is something that people might have thought was an easy thing, just being part of the whole circle. But again, it's about having that right song, and you know that actually built character in him and made him a lot pickier within his own productions, and sort of taught him what he liked to do and how to sort of curate his sound in a way that wasn't specific to what he wanted, but reach sort of a broader scale of people.
What advice would you give in terms of putting yourself in the right situation to meet these people? Because
You know-
so far you can go in like a smoking area of a club.
Yeah, no, but you know what? I have a saying, in the room, in the deal. And it's like, if you're not putting yourself in those situations, look, not everybody can get to the backstage at DC-10, or not everybody could be in, but just be out. One, with your music, you know what? If you keep consistent with it, people will take note eventually, you know? But it's about keeping yourself in conversations. It's about staying in the mix. There's a way to approach it. Hit it on the personal level, you know? Connect with them. Look, if you connect with somebody as a person and on a personal level first, then it's a lot easier afterwards to go back and be like, hey, you know, after a couple of times, that person's like, yeah, this dude's cool. And then you're like, yeah. And then he's like, oh, shit, I didn't know you produce or you make music. And you're like, yeah, here, you know what? Check out some of the, don't even say you want to sign the music. Don't even say, check out some of these tracks if you want to play them. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. I've seen that guy. You know, I've seen that fucking guy. And it's something where you're just like, oh. And you know what? Some people just can't control themselves, and you almost want to go and like put your arm around them and be like, dude, like just chill the fuck out. Don't get me wrong, you know, like there's moments in my career where I've like been in rooms with people I thought I'd never be in the room with, and you just gotta chill, you know. Listen, everybody always tends to lean more towards the person that's a little bit more relaxed and cool and not so aggressive and in your face. You know, imagine you're that artist, you know, and you just played a set for however many hours, and you go into the after party or you're backstage after to chill out and have a good time, you know, just relax, and somebody's like in your face. It's not a really good first impression, is it?
So do you think the first step is more the production than like trying to get some gigs?
Production. Look, first make sure your DJing's tight. Whether it's you play CDJs, you play vinyl, you play Tractor, make sure that's tight. Because if you do get the opportunities and then you suck, or it's not what they thought it was going to be, then what good is it at getting those opportunities, right? But the productions are something that, because look, at the end of the day, what's gonna keep you consistent? What's gonna keep you always growing and consistent in the world of all the other? There's so many DJs right now, so many producers. It's crazy, and in the age of social media right now, it's like it just changes every week. Every week there's a new rising star. There's somebody else who it's crazy. It's crazy in terms of the volume. So you have to stay consistent with your production. That for me anyways is first and foremost. And that's sort of, I think, where myself and the other managers within the company we kind of look at, because if we can see something special in the production, then it helps us say, right, now let's position him and start pushing to get the right gigs. You know, if he smashes it as a DJ, he's got the skills, he's got the chops, then it makes it a lot easier. But if you don't have those down, the basics, if the basics aren't down, and you know, by basics I don't mean just the average mix, like you really have to have it tight, because it does. You know, when you see an up and coming DJ working 4 decks, or you know, working 4 channels on the Tractor, it's like, wow. Or you see somebody that's busting out, like somebody from the new generation busting out vinyl. It's special because, you know, you don't see that. And I'm not saying go and do vinyl, but it's just something that's different. And if they really got that down pat, you know, that'll separate you from everybody else.
How important is it to try and get residency?
There's a time and a place for that. I think it's kind of a similar conversation in one of my meetings earlier, just how, you know, a DJ gets to say, Ibiza, you get there and you get 1 gig and you're like stoked, and then it's like, and then if nothing else comes after that, it could really kind of, if you put it in your head that now that I've had that 1 gig, I'm gonna land the residency here and I'm going to get that. And hey, it might happen. But I would say don't make that the be all and end all, you know. The residencies will come with growth and with experience, you know. And I would say what's more important probably than like that whole big picture sort of with the brands, yeah, it's good to have your name attached to a brand. Do the residency thing with your local club, you know. Try and be like a resident at wherever city or town you're from. Work it that way, and then eventually I think that'll lead to more. And also the labels, you know, you could be a bit tricky with it, and you know, you guys are in the know. You know which certain labels have brands and where they do parties, so maybe make a few of those, you know, a goal eventually that you release on that label maybe once or twice, and whoever the label head is, whoever's running the events after, take notes. Like I know with us, for Repopulate Mars, one of the things we really try to incorporate for the brand that I've sort of set out with Lee, you know, a lot of labels who start brands, what I notice is they don't book a lot of the guys that release music on the label at a lot of these events. So one thing we try to do is incorporate a lot of the guys who release on the label, because we've got to create a family, you know, and that's how from those guys you can then pluck your residents eventually and say, right, you know, these guys were consistent with us. They did all these great EPs. They had these good releases. Let's make them a regular. Let's book them, you know, 4 dates here. Let's book them with us 3 dates here. So I think that's something you can do to make yourself, you know, give yourself an advantage over a lot of others, is target specific labels, you know, and don't compromise your sound either for that though. If it's not kind of within your realm of what you're making, don't say, oh, because I want to do that. Just keep making what you're making and just get good at that. And you want to shop it to them, shop it to them. If they like it, they'll give you feedback or they'll sign it. You know, if it's really good music and it's kind of within that world, cool. But don't sacrifice what you're doing just to sort of say, right, if I do this with that label, it gives me a residency, because then you kind of lose yourself too, right? And you're not being true to yourself. That's how I see that.
Also, it doesn't matter if you produce a certain type of music, like DJ another type.
Happens with a lot of guys. Lee Foss right now he's in the studio. He's making anything from pop to indie, to house music to disco, and you see him play, and it's, you know, really a lot of it's tech house or kind of more on the vocal housey side. You find that with a lot of DJs too, that you go to their Spotify or their SoundCloud and you'll see some of the stuff that's out on there. Some of the mixes they're doing might be a little bit different than what they're playing, and every gig is different, you know, and as you grow as a DJ, you might get put into more techno situations, you might get put into more tech house situations, so you have to really be able to adapt in that environment. And if you're a DJ that's playing a lot of his own music too, you have to have that catalog of your own stuff to say, right, this fits for this room, this fits for that room, and experiment. It's good because you know what? If you experiment, you might end up creating something special, or you might find that next sound that ends up, you know, being what other DJs are going to go towards. So I would say that wouldn't hold you back.
Thank you very much, Attilio.
No problem.
Let's
Thank you,
see
guys.